So a very good morning boys and girls, and welcome back to another video. And in this one we're going to explore macro photography using the OM System OM-1Mkii and the OM System 90mm macro lens. It's an f3.5 lens. Let's see what we can do with it. So macro photography I found to be a lot of fun, and I tend to do it early spring and early autumn when we've got the bluebells, the first flowers, and then later on in the year when we have some mushrooms appearing. So I've just been messing about taking a photograph of a bluebell on a windy day, which was a tremendous amount of good fun, but we found something a little bit more static that's not blowing around in the wind. So we're going to photograph this little piece of holly just surrounded by some dead leaf litter. You can see I have an LED light just illuminating the scene from the side, because that's one of the wonderful things about macro photography, is you can essentially build the scene yourself. You can add light, you can add elements, and you can just add a little bit more control. Otherwise, landscape photography can be a bit of a faff in that respect. So macro photography, you can build the scene and you can add a little bit of light. But let's talk about the annoying thing when it comes to macro photography, and I'll show you how this camera has the answer built in. So one of my biggest bugbears when it comes to macro photography, it tends to be around light and depth of field, because you can't have one without losing the other. So when macro photography is typically done, you tend to be down at very narrow apertures in order to get that depth of field, because when you're shooting so close to your subject, same with any kind of lens, the closer you are to your subject, the less depth of field you have. But when it comes to macro photography, that isn't always a good thing. So a lot of macro photographers will add LED lights and illuminate scenes from the side, much as the way that I do, and you'll stop down a little bit and that'll give you a little bit depth of field. But what if there was a different way of doing it? What if there was a slightly better way of doing it? Well, it's called focus stacking. It's something you can do in landscape photography and all other kinds of photography, but it works really well for macro photography. It allows you to keep your lens open, an aperture that allows a lot of light in there, but the focus stacking moves the focus around. Essentially, you gain more depth of field by moving the focus point around. So let me demonstrate on this camera and I'll show you how it works. So first up, I'm going to take a photograph of this piece of holly, just a photograph of the piece of holly. So we're f5, a 250th of a second, and ISO 400. I'm just going to take a photograph. In fact, I'll tell you what, we use the touchscreen for this. So I just touch on the piece of holly. The camera has taken a macro photograph of the piece of holly and the surrounding leaf litter. Now if I put this picture on the screen, you can see that the piece of holly is actually in focus, but all of the leaf litter around it, it sort of blares off into a slight softness and you lose all of the detail, which is a kind of a shame really, because there's some fun textures in this piece of leaf litter. So let's now take a photograph and use the focus stacking, and I'll show you the difference that this actually makes. So let's turn focus stacking on. So we'll go press menu and we'll come to the computational modes, and you can see focus stacking is highlighted there in purple. We'll press OK. Press OK again and we'll turn that on. So set number of shots. So this is how many different photographs that the camera's going to take. So we've set that at 10, and the focus differential is right in the middle, which is set at 5. So the focus differential is essentially, it tells the camera how far to shift the focus forwards and backwards in order to get the focus stacking to work. So you can see we have the leaf on the screen now. So if I press right on the leaf, the camera is then going to take a series of photographs, moving the focus at the set differential, and now it's going to build as a JPEG preview file that we can look at, and hopefully this is going to work nice and fine. And there it is. So I can already see on the back of the camera that all of that leaf litter is now in focus, as well as the piece of holly. So I will throw these two images side by side on the screen, so you can just see the difference that focus stacking makes compared to taking one single photograph with a macro lens. So I would concede that a flat piece of holly against the floor isn't really the best way of showing the focus stacking in action, but at least you get the idea of how it works. So I've come across this fallen tree log. I'm guessing this is fallen over in the winter storms that we've just had. But on the back side of it, on all of this moss here, there is a little patch of fungus still growing. And a couple of them look really fun with some nice textures on the back, and I think with an LED light shining across them, we'll maybe be able to make something that looks quite fun. The problem is it's very cluttered around here. There's lots of vines and lots of thorns, and well, getting the camera into position, it may be quite difficult. So give me half an hour and I'll try and contort things so we can take a nice macro photo of this. Hopefully I can demonstrate the focus stacking on a nice still subject with a bit of background blare as well. So let's have a look and see what we can create here. So upon closer inspection of this piece of fungus, there is a very small little bug sat there. He's been very obliging while I've turned lights on and put camera lenses in his face, And I think it'll make for a fun little subject just to show the difference between a single macro photo and one that has been focus stacked. So I'm going to turn the camera on and we're going to focus stack this first. So I've got the bug on the bottom rule of thirds corner point, and we've got a nice bit of fungus around. There's some greenery as well in there, which is going to make for a fun little photograph. So I'm going to touch right on the bug's face, and the camera's going to move forwards and backwards through the focus, taking 10 photographs, and it's going to stack those and it's going to give me a JPEG output. But the best thing about this, for those people that like to photo edit, you also keep the raw files as well. So you end up with 11 photographs, 10 raw files and 1 stacked JPEG. And he looks nice and in focus on there. Let's just zoom in and double check. So the little bug is nice and in focus, so I will show you the edited focus stacked image now. And for this next photograph, the settings are essentially the same, only we're not focus stacking, we're just going to take one single photograph of the bug. So we're down f5.6, a 1/80th of a second, ISO 400. And obviously I'm using the little LED light just to illuminate his face. So if I touch on him now, the camera's taking a photograph. So here's side by side, a focus stacked and a non-focus stacked. So I'm going to be perfectly honest with you right now. This is the first time in a very long time that I've come out and genuinely enjoyed doing macro photography. It's something that I like the end result of, but I kind of find the whole process to be faffy at times, and it kind of takes the shine off things. Photography should be fun, shouldn't it? Now, I own the OM-1Mkii and the Olympus 90mm ƒ3.5 macro lens. The last time I did macro photography, that was the lens and camera combination that I was using. And as great as that combination is, it's a worlds apart from what these new OM system cameras and the OM system pro lenses are able to achieve, such as the focus stacking that I've been using in today's video. Now, you can focus stack manually, but it's something that I tend to avoid because I find it a bit of a faff and a little bit of a chore. But the fact that this camera will do it in camera for you and you can see the end result, it just throws a little bit of encouragement out there to go home and stack those raw files myself and just see how I can get a photograph to look using this technique. Now, as I've said before, the camera will do all of this in camera for you, but it does spit out a JPEG file. The stacked photograph is a JPEG. So for those people who like to edit, I would recommend keeping the raw files, stacking them in your favourite stacking software when you get home, and hopefully you'll be able to achieve some really fantastic results using a camera like this, an Olympus Pro lens such as this f3.5 90mm macro lens. So what about those absolutely crazy people out there that don't like to use tripods like I do, and you want to get a nice, still, sharp photograph? Well, sometimes it can be a bit of a chore, can't it? Unless the lens has stabilisation. So not only is the lens stabilised, the body is stabilised as well, which allows you to do stupid things like this. So if I go over to this tree here, just starting to get some buds on where spring's just around the corner. So let's stop that from wobbling about so much. If I focus right on there, using the high-speed sequential shooting mode, it's taken an absolute ton of photographs. Hopefully one of them will be sharp, and the image stabilisation on the lens will of course help to contribute towards that. Here's a photograph. So honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised by just how many bugs are about, even at this time of year. I thought late February, it'd be kind of dead in the woods. There's a ladybird just on a piece of moss down here, so I've thrown the light on. Hopefully we're going to be able to focus stack this, but it's just started to move about a little bit. Last few minutes he's been sat there nice and still and really well behaved, but at the minute he seems to be doing something with his head. Hopefully he's going to stay nice and still. He's still moving a little bit. Obviously for focus stacking we want as minimal amount of movement as we possibly can. So I'm down at f6.3, a 100th of a second, ISO 400. He seems to have stopped moving. So here's a focus stacked photograph of the face of a ladybug on a green piece of moss. So I hope you've enjoyed the photographs in this video just as much as I've enjoyed taking them. If I have persuaded you to pick up this camera and lens combination, I will leave links down in the description where you can pick them up either brand new or on the used market, preference up to you. Thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up and a like. It really does help the video and it helps bring new viewers to see my content. And if you're new here and you see me for the first time, you can always hit the subscribe button down below and you'll see more Micro Four Thirds related nonsense from myself every single week. I guess all that's left to say is I'll catch you in the next one. Peace and goodbye.